everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name's Christina, and today we're going to be reacting to this video called A Vegan's Case for Eating Meat. And this video was created by the YouTuber called Reasonable Vegan. I know him, we've talked, I've been on his podcast before. His name's Carson, and he asked me specifically if I could react to this video and give my thoughts. So that's what I'm going to do today. Yeah, let's go.
So I think there are many cases where telling people that it's okay to eat meat is more beneficial for animals than telling them that it's not.
Inflammatory right off the bat. Okay, interesting.
The first example I'll give is something like, let's say a vegan's having a debate with a non-vegan. And the vegan asks the non-vegan, what's your best argument for why we should be able to make animals suffer to eat them? And their reaction is, we need to eat meat to stay healthy. Now, our reaction back to them might be pointing out sites and sources for why we don't. We can find all kinds of things. Dr. Michael Greger and Nutrition Facts, all the various different places where it can show you can be a healthy person that is not eating animals. And they'll say, oh, I've looked it up and I just don't think so. I need omegas from fish, and you can tell them about algae supplements, but they don't buy it. They don't think it's as good. Or somebody that is doing like an all meat diet because it's cured their ailments, like Michaela Peterson or Jordan Peterson. You can have various different people where you won't be able to get past that point. So if when they say that you need it to be healthy and you say you don't, if you just tell them you're wrong and either go vegan or that's it, or there's nothing else to tell them, that person hasn't changed at all. There's nothing that has come from that other than you trying to push this idea down their throats. Now, the idea is good. I'm vegan. I'm 100% vegan. I think we should not eat animals. But if instead you said to that person, okay, so you think you need to eat meat to be healthy. What meats do you need to be healthy? And the debate can go that route. Instead of shutting down that element and trying to get them to accept your studies and science you found, you ask them for what their take is on it. And your average person will say something like this, probably, I'm guessing. Nobody ever lets it go this direction, but this is the direction it should go. Your average person will say something to the effect of hormone-free chicken, grass-fed hormone-free beef, and fish. And then they say that they think a mixture of those things, and then let's say they also say eggs, um, and eggs are necessary to be healthy. Then you can say, okay, will you agree that chicken nuggets are not healthy because they're deep fried in unhealthy oils? And then they're likely going to say, yes, that's unhealthy. How about like a greasy burger? You got this bun that's made out of white flour and all this processed garbage. And then hopefully they'll say, yeah, that's not good for you. Hot dogs, it's all this processed garbage. And hopefully they'll go, hot dogs, yeah, hot dogs are not good for you. Then you can say, okay, so here's my thought. If you are a person that doesn't want to harm animals unnecessarily, and you can throw out this other example of, if you just punch a cow in the face, is that fine? If you're not going to, it's just for fun. Most sane people will say, no, you cannot punch a cow in the face just for fun. So if you're going to kill animals, there has to be a good reason. And so these people will say there's a good reason because the health side of it. So I think these people should also reasonably accept that if they're admitting that eating hot dogs and chicken nuggets and other processed meats like that are unhealthy, that if they consume those, they are contributing to harm for not a good reason.
I think I agree with Carson here. Actually, I think it brings up an interesting point. So basically, what he's saying is that, okay, so you're having a conversation with someone, maybe this is like a street outreach thing. You're having a discussion with someone about veganism or about animal rights. Um, and the topic of health comes up, right? And we know, scientifically speaking, that humans don't need meat or animal products to be healthy. But in this case, no matter what you show this person, no matter like how you try to persuade them, they won't budge, and they still believe that eating animal products or certain animal products is necessary for their health. So Carson's arguing like most people are against unnecessary harm, but they have different definitions of what necessary means, and you need to play into that. And so in this case, you could say, well, there are also unhealthy kinds of meat like chicken nuggets, hot dogs, they're heavily processed, less of like saturated fat, like bad for you. I don't think anyone would say that chicken nuggets are a health food, so I think it's a good argument. But if you can get people to concede and be like, well, oh, then I only need to eat like good meat or high quality meat to be healthy, and they stop eating like processed, they stop going to fast food chains or something like that, and you do get them to change something in their life, because that's the goal of these conversations, is you want people to make a change, like a concrete change of their habits and of their consumption. And if you can't get them to go vegan immediately, or get them to consider it, if they're like hard against it, if they are not budging on any point that you make, you should probably start playing into their own perspective and to start to argue from their own perspective, and that their own thoughts, no matter how opposed to veganism, would in some way lead to a more veganic way of living, a less harmful way of living. And it's just about making those little steps towards veganism, because Carson is an advocate for those little steps, and he's against the all or nothing approach that some activists have, like either you go vegan or I'll stop talking to you. And he's saying, instead of leaving that person to just go on living their life as it is, try to get to them to like reduce or to change something to us, so you're still making a difference in that person's life, even though maybe you won't get them to go vegan. But I do think like this is the soft approach. I would call this a soft approach versus the hard approach of either you go vegan or I don't want to have anything to do with you, right? Like at that point, when they're very resistant, you can advocate for smaller steps, because every little step that they take changes their mindset as well. Like you act your way into a new way of thinking, because once you stop eating hot dogs, it might seem easier to also stop eating steak, right? Every little thing you do makes it easier to take the next step. And before you know it, like if they come into contact with the idea of veganism enough times, someday they might become a vegan, but they need to work towards that. And some people don't need that at all. And once they hear the idea of veganism, make the connection, they're like, I'm going vegan cold turkey, or I'm cutting out meat, or like something like a big step. Other people can't do that, or don't think they can do that, or are very resistant towards that. And I do think both approaches are necessary, and it really depends on the person that you're talking to. Um, but yeah, I do think is making a great point here.
You could convince those people to at least make the claim that they're from that point on only going to eat hormone-free chicken and hormone-free grass-fed beef and different fish. Then if they truly stick to that, even though that's not vegan and we will look at that as bad, if you get 1,000 people to stick to that, then that's 1,000 cases of all these other treatments.
That's a good point. Like if you can get a lot of people to do that, a lot of people to take little steps, like 1,000 people cutting down like 50% on their animal consumption or on specific animal products, that does make a difference in the grand scheme of things when it comes to supply and demand. So theoretically, yes, it would be amazing. But like, how do you know that they're going to stick to that? Because people who don't have like a very strong moral backing to their actions often make exceptions and have cheat days and stuff like that. So I think it's a bit complicated. Although there's merit to this definitely, because every little step that they take gets them closer to the next step and the next step and the next step, and ultimately their mental resistance to veganism will decrease over time. And it's like playing the long game. It seems very counterintuitive as a very hardline ethical vegan. Because veganism is a very, it seems like a very black and white issue, and it is pretty much a black and white issue. Like either you abuse animals or you don't, either you pay for exploitation or you don't, either you support animal rights or you don't. But there are different methods and different strategies to get to the end goal. You have the Gary Yourofskys of the world, and you have the Tobias Leenaerts of the world. I don't know if you know, Tobias Leenaert is like a vegan strategist from Belgium. He has a more like pragmatic approach when it comes to veganism, and he's very lenient in his advocacy. And he wants to create a vegan world, and therefore advocates for vegetarianism as well, because every little step people take is an improvement. Like he would rather see like 20% of people cutting down significantly on their consumption rather than maybe 5% of people being completely vegan. He thinks the number of people involved in this cause is more important than how pure people are, I guess, in the level of harm they cause. And I think I don't know how I feel about it because it feels incredibly counterintuitive to me. In this case, I think Carson is advocating for it as like a secondary approach. Like first you give them all the information and everything that we know as vegans, all the arguments that we've heard against like carnism, and then if they don't budge, if they're incredibly resistant, then you go over into the soft approach, whereas someone like Tobias Leonard would advocate for the soft approach first, and I don't know if I agree with that. But I do think both approaches are necessary in some sense.
First of all, that eliminates all factory farming. If they are truly going to go for hormone free stuff, that's not factory farming. So now we have it down to free range chickens and cows.
I'm not entirely sure about that. Because even if you advocate, even if people believe that they only should buy free range chicken or free range eggs, those also come from factory farms. It's not what they think it means. Like once people start saying like, oh, I'm only going to buy like high quality, like hormone free, grass fed, free range, whatever, then it's like up to the marketing to be accurate. And still, I don't really see how that would eliminate factory farming entirely. I think it would lead to like higher welfare standards. If collectively everyone was just buying hormone free, grass fed, whatever, then it would there would still be a huge demand for meat, and so you would still need those factory farms. So I'm not entirely sure if I agree that this approach would eliminate factory farming, but it is, a step in the right direction.
Then and then also, I guess an element that you could add on is you could see if they think it's reasonable to cut down on meat. So not only are they doing these specific kinds, but now they're going to do maybe half the amount. Now, if that's the case, if you get them to say that, and they stick to it, if you contribute to the death of like 50 to 200 animals every year, and somebody cuts that in half, and so I don't know what the average is, but imagine cutting that in half. Any amount is good. If you convince 100 people to kill one less animal every year, that's 100 less animals dead. So you haven't created a vegan, but you created somebody with this idea in their head. They're starting to think about it now. They're starting to go, I don't want to punch a cow in the face, so I don't want to eat a hot dog.
Every little change that you can get people to make in their lives is better than what they were doing before. And if you can't get them to go vegan immediately or agree that veganism is like the moral way to live, every little step makes the next step easier to take. But I think it is crucial with this method to always keep veganism as the end goal. These little steps are just a different method to get to the end goal, right? If you can't get someone to change their mind and then change their actions, you first get them to change their actions and then slowly over time change their mind.
But I think I need this steak or this healthy beef or whatever to be healthy. So I'm going to do this because I care about myself more than the animals, but I care about their well-being more than just taste buds. If you can convince a wild amount of people to care more about animals than their own taste buds, but to also happen to eat meat because they think they need it to be healthy and they care more about their health than the animals, that's amazing. We should do that.
Interesting point all around. Thank you for sending this to me. Of course, I think this approach should be used like after having a whole discussion with someone about health and that you don't need animal products to be healthy. And if after that they still don't believe you, then argue this. I would like to see more research on the effectiveness of outreach methods. Like how effective is this method actually in getting people to change? I would like to see quantifiable data on this. I don't know if Faunalytics has made any research on this. But yeah, no, my stance on this is that we need both the hard and the soft approach. We need to use them interchangeably based on the person. But I think the message in our advocacy should always be strong. A message for animal rights and against animal exploitation. By the way, sorry if my voice sounds really bad because I went to a protest yesterday. We were protesting the serving of foie gras in 2 restaurants in our city. One of them actually said they're taking off the menu, so that's positive. But I was yelling the whole time. So yeah, no, thank you, Carson, for sending this to me. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one.